Welcome back to Unlocking Your Creative Curiosity with Tammy Collins, where we explore, experiment, evolve, express, and evoke emotion through our creativity and our art. Here's a sneak peek at what's in today's video. Okay, so today we are doing a translucent or, smoky tissue paper experiment. And what I'm trying to do here is encase the tissue paper in a medium that changes the dynamic of the tissue paper. And so in our previous tissue paper experiment where we added paint to the paper, it created a really neat effect on actually the back of the tissue paper, which I'll show you here in a second. I want to just give you that look at what that actually did. We added paint to the tissue paper, we let it dry, and then we removed it. And so here I'm showing you some samples. The back of the paper, it almost seemed like a wax experiment, and it really intrigued me. So I did a ton of research. I did a bunch of poking around. I've experimented before with sort of just encasing it in, either a matte medium or a glue to give it some rigidity, if you will. So that's what we're going to play with today. And there were lots of different videos and lots of different ideas and lots of different experiments on ways to do this. I'm working with what it is that I have on hand, and that is this Liquitex. It's a liquid medium. It's not a matte medium. It just basically says a liquid medium. I'm not really sure. I got it at actually it was like a craft sale. So I'm already not liking the way that works, but I'm going to keep going with it. I'm putting the matte medium, which I did put a little bit of water in, underneath to get the back side of the tissue paper saturated. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to put it on the top of the tissue paper. Now this tissue paper is a really high quality. I know you've had experiences with different types of tissue paper. This particular one is super high quality, so it's a little on the thick side. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out. And I decided I wanted a little bit different brush here because I just want to get the paper saturated. So I'm putting this on parchment paper. You could do this on a number of different surfaces, but you just want something that the glue won't stick to when it's dry. And so I'm just making sure I'm getting it all situated. I want it wrinkly and crumply. I don't even care if it rips. I am going to just sort of bunch up an edge just because I don't know what the experience ripping it off will be like. So I'm just going to kind of give it a little push there on the edge so that it has a thick side that'll help me to sort of grab it and pull it when we're ready and it dries. So now we're going to move on, and I'm experimenting. This is tulle, which is like a really fine, almost like a really fine fishnet. I happen to have this. I've done this a couple times. I haven't quite found the right way to do this. And now after doing this experiment, I almost think it would be great to do this in combination with a tissue napkin. But we'll see. We're just going to experiment with it and see what happens. I also thought it might be interesting to add some embellishments onto this piece, which might help. String came to my mind, and just some very delicate, almost like tissue paper punch outs really would work well, actually, like leaves and flowers and things of that nature. Maybe we'll do that as a different experiment. I really like to figure out a way to get this tool to work because of its fishnet nature. The holes are slightly big, so I guess the glue isn't getting enough grab there. And I'm almost wondering if it would just take more than one application or things of that nature. So I'm realizing this, and I'm getting out my trusty paint that you've seen me use a bunch of times from another project that's been modified slightly, and I just sort of want to add some drops and elements here of just real quick. That's all I'm doing. Um, so I'll put in this gold. This is a nice little metallic sheen to it. And in my mind, I'm thinking this might help sort of with the negative nature of the fishnet style holes. Um, this experiment didn't go so hot. You'll see it didn't really dry, and so we'll have to revisit this in another experiment and see what we can add to it or do with it. Here I'm thinking maybe if I spray it with some water, I get that paint to move around. Um, I'm setting it off to dry. So now we're doing just a straight up napkin, and this turned out to be my most favorite one of all, and I'm really loving this, and excuse me, I think I'm going to do a bunch more of these. It's super, super delicate. So unlike the bee tissue paper, the bee tissue paper was kind of hardy and thick and could sort of withstand the water. The napkin is super delicate, but I think that's why it has such a great texture when it's done. So we're just going to get it saturated. Now, some people have done this with like a Elmer's glue and kind of doing a 3-to-1 ratio and, you know, using that. The only struggle, I'm sure that would work great. The only struggle that you could run into with that if you were using this in certain applications is it may not be archival. You know, I don't know how long that would hold up, if it would yellow, or what may happen there. So that would be the only drawback to using the glue. In this case, I like to use the Liquitex products or Golden products or a more archival formal art product when possible. And I think I did mention, I did put a little bit of water in this medium as well. Okay, so now we're going to try something else. I was really curious to use some sort of stamping. I have had this Stampin' Up pad. I've got a bunch of these. I've had these for, oh my gosh, maybe 2 decades. I can't even believe they still have ink in them. They are getting pretty much to the end of their life there, but you know, it worked great for this application. And so I'm just experimenting. I don't have any more white tissue paper. And so this is sort of a, you know, an antique color, a tan, a camel color, a light, very, very light brown. And I'm just giving it some snowflakes stamping here. I'm curious to see how the medium reacts with the ink, if it becomes blurry or runs or anything like that. So we're going to do a couple of these experiments. Okay, so we're just going to fill this in with a couple other snowflakes, and then we'll do the same process and add in the slightly watered down medium. Now I am doing this in real time. I'm giving the stamps a few minutes to just set up and dry. So I'm stamping it and I'm setting them off to the side before I put the medium on. Now I have this other little stamp, and I'm also trying a different ink. This is more of a actual stamping ink. It's a blue. It's a traditional ink used for rubber stamps and sort of in business. I have a feeling this might run a little bit, but that's okay. I'm interested to see what happens with that. And so now I'm going to do that same stamp with a few of the Stampin' Up color, which is like an aubergine or an eggplant. It's a very deep purple. Reminds me of an eggplant, so it's almost that tint of black into the purple. And I'll tell you, I've really enjoyed these stamps. I've had them a long time. They really have been fantastic. They were worth the money. All right, so we're just going to repeat that process, get these coated. Now, the other thing is that a lot of people that did this experiment let their items dry for 24 hours. As you know, I am super impatient. My creative time is now. I want to do this now. So I'm getting these all done. I'm going to, I'm setting a bunch of them outside. There's a very slight gentle breeze and some sun. And I'm doing a couple in front of a fan. And we'll see how quickly we can get them separated and dried. And I would imagine that this would be vary greatly depending on the type of medium that you use, whether it's glue versus matte medium, and how thick the application is, and the type of paper. So there's a million different things that could affect that dry time. So we'll see how that works. And you can see I'm just using parchment paper there. I'm just ripping that off and getting the next one ready. And the ink dried well. It didn't smear or smudge, so I was super happy about that. It works with my impatient nature and allowed me to keep on moving. So I was really happy about that. I really enjoyed working. I really love the tissue paper. I love working with it. There's so many things you can do with it. I'm really just learning all of that and taking the time to explore it now and do different experiments and things that I've come across in the past or things that have, sparked my interest. If you're returning and watching more of my videos, I'm so happy that you're back. If you're new, welcome. Again, I'm just trying to share my journey. It's perfectly imperfect. There's, I'm trying to show that there aren't really rules, and, creativity and making art doesn't have to be doesn't have to fit into some preconceived expectation or some box or some rule that you're supposed to follow. You just got to get in there and play and have fun. And that's my purpose for this channel. I'm hoping to just inspire you to try some things. Okay, so now this ink, I do expect this ink to sort of bleed a little bit, but I thought that might be a good effect. And I suppose I could have done this in a way to prevent it from bleeding a little bit, but and you of course could put anything on this tissue paper. I mean, you could paint it first, you could draw on it, you could do all kinds of things. You could do some mark making, you could do all sorts of things before you sort of sealed this layer. Probably I would use something not that isn't water based. If it's water based, it's most likely going to bleed like this. Um, but as you can see, it's not too bad. I mean, it's just an ever so slight amount, which is kind of cool. It makes it look aged and a little worn. So I was enjoying that effect. I thought maybe if I sprayed it with some water there, it might bleed a little more. Okay, so I did give these about, they only had to dry for about 2 hours, maybe three. A couple of them went 3 hours. But look at these amazing papers. Now, this one feels almost slightly rubbery, or like a very thin waxed paper. And that's because that bee tissue paper was a very heavy, high quality tissue paper. Now, this is just a regular tissue paper. It's a little thinner, a little bit lighter. You know, I think it came from like the dollar store or something like that. And so it is definitely different. It has a slightly different feel than the bees did. You can see it ripped. I don't really care if it rips or not. I mean, it's a nice effect. I actually like that there's an imprint on the parchment paper. That is also creating a unique piece. But I really love the way this came out. I mean, you can think about all the applications of adding these into your collages as a layer, or so many different things you can do. Now, this one was my favorite. I absolutely love the way this came out. This is just like your basic grocery store dinner napkin. It's like a two ply that there's two plies to it. You pull it apart. Some napkins are 3 ply. This is a 2 ply. It's very, very thin. This just came out really amazing. I want to do some more of this stuff, and I can imagine sort of. I'll be curious because the napkin might be a little harder to stamp or decorate first, but I can imagine doing that now, after it's been embedded in this medium. It's just amazing. I absolutely love it. The texture's amazing. The just everything about it. There's a very slight pattern from the napkin there. You can crinkle it. You can. It's amazing. I really love the way this came out. Now this one did bleed a little bit more, which was cool. I liked that effect and the way it came out. Same thing, it kind of left an imprint on the parchment paper, which could be cool to use as well. And now we've got the one that was done with the Stampin' Up! Ink. I really like this one too. And so you can see them side by side here. This one I wasn't quite sure if it was totally dry or not. Like I said, I just let these sit. They really didn't take that long to dry. I'll be curious to see how they feel tomorrow, after they've had another, a good 24 hours to dry. But they're not tacky. They're not wet in any way. They feel completely dry. Um, really great. I love the way these came out. So here I'm just showing you all the ones that we did. That one's the best. My favorite. I like the bee. It just is a completely different piece. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this and add it into my swatch book. I like to take pieces of what I've made and put them into the swatch book. So this was the piece that sort of inspired this activity, and I did some research and sort of gathered some ideas about how I wanted to sort of go about creating sort of this translucent. Now you can see here the tulle, it's not it's not the same. It's different. I think the paint needs to dry more, obviously, and I'm debating about putting a second coat on there. So we might have to revisit that one later. But I'm going to take these pieces and I'm going to take some swatches of them and add them into my swatch book here. So you can see here from the previous tissue experiment, I put some of those swatches in there already. And so now I'm adding in some of these. And I don't get super hyper, I don't really give this a whole lot of thought. I just sort of rip off some samples of all the things I want to include in there. And then I just go to town sort of applying it in there. I am going to use some Elmer's glue, watered down Elmer's glue here, just because I didn't have any more of the matte medium ready and I had the Elmer's glue on hand. So we're going to do that. It is watered down slightly. And this is the inspiration piece, so it's important that I have some of that in there. And I also thought it would be helpful to sort of help show how the translucent nature of the paper sort of came out. And so there's two sides to this tissue paper, and I think it's important for me to put both sides in here. So you'll see I'm going to do the original side that I painted and then the back side, because I'm trying to tell the story of what inspired me and what I've done and what the outcomes were. So be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have something you want to share with me about this video, let me know in the comments. Have you tried this type of translucent tissue paper exercise? Which one of these was your favorite? My favorite was the napkin. I did like the bee, and I did also like sort of the antique nature of the tan paper and the stamping on there. That was really neat. I like that. Um, so here you can see I'm doing I have the front on the left and then I did the back part on the right. So you can kind of see the two different ones. It may be hard to see in the video, but in person you can really tell the difference. And so now I want to use this one on here because I want the translucent aspect to show through. Now, I think because this tissue paper is thicker, that it doesn't actually give the effect I'm looking for. I think the napkin was the best translucent effect. So these are also translucent, but it's different. It has more of an antique feel, which I love as well and would fit in perfect in the right application. These snowflake ones could make a unique addition to, say, a Christmas or holiday card. That could be a really good addition. Neat piece, unique, give it a signature look. So like I said, I'm not really trying to make any sort of spectacular piece of art here. I'm just simply trying to record swatches from what we made. That's it. It's sort of my way of reminding me what the exercise was. I just love that tissue paper. I mean, the napkin, excuse me. The napkin one was the best. Should do a whole, well, maybe we'll do a whole video just on napkins. I would be curious to test, you know, mark making. I mean, I'm sure you're going to have to do it after it's dried, but that could be very interesting. And I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting pieces everywhere, and so you can kind of see and get a feel for what layering looks like and how the pieces sort of blend and what kind of effect they get. But that's it. I'll sort of trim off the edges here, and then I'll let it dry, and then when it's dry I'll come back and really clean up the edge. Um, but let me know what you think. Tell me your translucent tissue paper experiences, if you've had any, what your favorite medium is to use to make it work, what your favorite paper is to make it work. I'd love to hear. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell notification. And I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this creative exploration with Tammy Collins, where we explore, experiment, evolve, express, and evoke emotion through our creativity. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't be shy. Tell me in the comments what you like, what you didn't like, what other things you would love to see me do.